Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests bring you insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for soul growth. Come journey with us through astrology's energetic cycles and get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hi. You know what? My computer. Oh, hello, everybody. I so apologize. I wish we could edit this, but we're live. Life is live. And today we're talking about the moon. The moon it's moon power, but moon power means so many emotional things. It just keeps stepping in our way, and we have to work with it. And that's what today is about, is that if we can track it, maybe we can get some further understanding. It's like listening to our body, but here it's a very involved. It's not linear like our ABC mental conditions that we think are so linear. Because with all the computer issues, okay, enough of that. We're on, and we are ready for Kaleidoscope Visions. Thank you.
Associating current astrology transits to a real-life natal chart transit reading through the understanding of the sky's cosmic consciousness for navigating free will options, this is your Kaleidoscope Visions Panel.
I am Sue Minahan, founder of Talk Cosmos since 2018, an evolutionary astrologer and student of vibrational astrology, a consultant, workshop facilitator, lecture speaker, writer, Dwarf Planet University graduate, charter member of Kepler Astrology Toastmaster Club, hold an AA degree and Associate of Fine Arts Music degree, and Certificate of Fine Arts in Jazz. I'm an artist, musician, mythologist, and pursue esoteric philosophies.
I'm Amanda Pierce. I'm a soul-centered astrologer, blending intuition into my practice. I believe the universe is always working for our highest good and seek to empower my clients in our readings. I teach a 4-week series of empowerment-based meditation classes that connect you deeper into your own intuition and innate power. I work in communications with a passion for employee experience. I also have a BA in psychology. I'm passionate about healing and enjoy helping others create new realities and shift old paradigms.
And I am John Chenworth, an astrologer from Seattle, Washington. I grew up in southern Arizona and was so obsessed with mythology that I concretely imprinted the Greco-Roman pantheon into my psyche. I still see those gods and goddesses infused into everything around me. My experiences of working with developmentally disabled and resource students for many years as both teacher and mentor has given me a strong compassion for others and has seasoned me with an exceptional reconciling energy. I have more than 18 years experience reading natal charts and continue to enhance consulting techniques by attending workshops and conferences. I use a unique blend of evolutionary, archetypal, and traditional astrological methods to look for themes in the birth chart for us to explore. I also enjoy penning poems and exploring Washington State on road trips.
And like the Sufi poet Rumi says,
you are the entire ocean in a drop.
Oh, hello, Amanda and John. Here we are.
Hello. Good to see you both again.
Good to see you all. Nice to be back.
It is. And it's right after the solstice, the Venus star point. We're in the swirl. It's kind of like in the waves of the ocean, I suppose.
Definitely.
And maybe we can start with our slides. If we can get those up for a moment, that would be great. Oh, you know what? I see what happened. Oh boy. Today, why don't you two talk about the moon? Just talk about the moon, because I was booted out and had to come back in. Of course, I lost my slides and I've got to get them up again. So it's the moon, and we know it's empathic, but what else is it?
It moves the fastest in the chart. It's the quickest of the planets. Races through the sky. It changes its phases. Ruled by Cancer.
Yes, indeed. Amanda.
Or it rules
Here we
Cancer,
go.
I guess I should say.
Yeah. The moon is our emotional body, and our emotions are really good indicators of what we've got going on spiritually for ourselves.
It's always change. It is. It's like
Mhm.
that's what we're showing is 20 on a constant basis, 29 and a half days. It goes from one phase to the next. And mhm.
I think of it as like the gut instinct. Like what do you like feeling in your gut? What's the thing to do that you need to do? Noel Till, I like his a description of it as the reigning need of the person, what you really need to survive or get along in life.
It's also where we go to feel safe.
Right.
So if we feel like, our surroundings aren't safe for whatever reason, we'll revert back into our shell
Mm.
and feel into those energies of our natal moon.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
It's tied
And
to the mother as well. And mother
Mother,
energy, maybe mothering, taking care of.
it's our habits, like, and that goes
Right.
back to like the safety thing. Like it feels comfortable to do habits, to be habitual.
I'm glad you brought that word up, feel, because following you both, I was off into these ideas, but that's just it. Some folk, being very air oriented, can diagnose their feelings to such a mental condition. It takes
Yeah.
time to really connect. And so the moon, it's great to really understand. Thank you for all of that. John and Amanda, I know here I'm going to get that you both had, here we go with the 4 phases, in which there are 8, but we're going to focus on the 4.
Exactly. Well, I'll talk about these. This is a great graphic, by the way. I'll start on the right there with the new moon. And that happens in a chart when the moon's at 0 to 45 degrees. And it kind of ties in with the winter solstice or Yule. It's brand new. It's kind of cold. With a plant, it'd be like the seed and a tender shoot is starting to come out. So kind of represents a new idea, a new venture being initiated. Yeah, when you go up to the top of the chart there, you see the first quarter where the right half is lit up. That's about from 91 degrees to 135 degrees. That's the equivalent of spring or Ostara. We call this moon, astrologers like to call this moon crisis in action. And I think of a plant that's new above the ground and is it going to survive or not? Because it has to be really strong and anything could happen, which could change what would happen to it. So your new idea, how strong it is it? How are you backing it up? What are you planning? What do you think it's going to grow into? So that kind of stuff with that kind of a moon. In this phase, you have to make decisions. You need to act. It's risk taking. It's challenges. So on the left side, the big white one
Well,
is.
what about Amanda? Does Amanda have a
Oh
thought
yeah,
here?
sorry.
Yes, thank
I
you.
just
It's all
kept
right. Yeah.
going.
Sure.
Feel the
Sorry.
Yeah.
faces.
Yeah, you were on a roll, and I loved exactly where you were going. The first quarter moon here, this is, like you said, that crisis in action. It's like outward action into the world. You're taking it's like a yang energy. So you're taking action out in the world.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, I love that whole idea. Crisis in action, because a square is just that, is action.
Right.
You got to move. You got to do something.
You can't just sit there on a square. It kind of
And the
makes you
world
take
loves
action.
the world loves action. Again and again, sages say that the world responds. If we act and do some little step, then the world life, energy, however we want to look at it, has something to come to us.
I wanted to mention before I get to the full moon, in between these two is the gibbous moon, and the person we have on today has a gibbous moon. So I wanted to mention, and I have one too. And this is like before the big show opens, it's like the dress rehearsal and you're trying to get everything organized. So it's a very analytical, very busy moon. Is everything in the right place? So that kind of energy comes with that kind of moon. And then the big show, the full moon, which is, of course, runs from about 81 degrees to 225 degrees. This is the summer solstice. Everything's bright and brilliant. It's showtime. You culminate, you fulfill. It's abundance. It's the ultimate creativity. I remember training with Stephen Forrest, and he mentioned something that really stuck with me. At the full moon, there's a hint of bittersweetness because it innately knows from there it can't grow anymore and it's going to start to diminish. So there's a bittersweetness with the full moon.
And
Amanda.
yeah, and the new moon, if the new moon is like the seeding or the sprouting period, the full moon is where you bear fruit.
Right.
And there's full exposure. So you've gone from new moon, which is dark, you're gaining light all the way to the full moon. And so you have greater awareness and more objectivity because this full moon is like an opposition to the sun. And with an opposition, you always have more awareness. And you just have greater understanding of what's going on. So you can have greater objective thinking or communication in this phase. So yeah, I think that's.
And if I might,
go ahead.
Yeah, I'll add here that therefore a person has choice because it could be that whatever has developed isn't really according to what you thought, because we don't know. We have a dream and perhaps we didn't understand everything that was necessary, or perhaps there's so many elements. So at that time we could prune it, leave it, or continue to develop it.
I picture the full moon, magnolia blossom fully open. It's the full receptors open to everything, right? It's just a very open, listening kind of moon, right?
Hopefully it smells good and you don't have allergies.
Exactly.
Well, that's the thing with the full moon. Sometimes your awareness, you have all of this light is being reflected off of the full moon, and you may get awareness that you don't enjoy. Like, so something could come to light that it could be good news, it could be bad news. It just depends on what you're going through in your life.
When I mentioned from the new moon to the full moon, we call that waxing, and that will start the waning phases where the light starts to diminish. So bottom of that chart is the third quarter that relates to fall or Mabon. I got 271 degrees at about 315 degrees. We call this the crisis in consciousness, opposite the crisis in action. You're starting to let go. The plant is starting to wither and get ready for the winter. And this is in the teaching area of the chart. What have you learned from your big show, from being on stage? What can you share? What can you give the community? Amanda, anything to add?
Yeah, so this is the like cultivating phase where you've had like the full abundance from the full moon, and now you're cultivating the harvest. And where the first quarter moon was the crisis in action, which is more outward action and yang. This crisis in consciousness is an inward action. You're now taking making shifts on an inward place. So it's more of a yin energy, so that you can come to a full completion and full cycle and shift your consciousness.
Yes.
And those are the phases.
Wonderful.
Or the four main phases.
Yes, the four main phases, which often are related. And just as far as the chronological, it goes from new moon to new moon often. However, because we've just experienced a full moon a couple of days ago, right after the solstice, it was the day after, we're going to work from the full moon to the full moon on our transit reading. But I have the dates here for those people that want to see that. So the full moon was on the 21st. Of course, the new moon was on June 6th. And the next one, okay, we won't worry about that. We will go on. Whoops. Okay, here we are. On this Capricorn full moon, which is just a few days ago, right? As I say, there's many next to the solstice. So many moon aspects. The moon was out of bounds. You know, it's in this period of 10 years where it comes and goes out of bounds frequently. But it was out of bounds along with Mercury, Venus, and Ceres. And Ceres is that higher octave. Oh, and they're parallel declination, which means that they're the same distance from the equator, even though they're in totally different signs, as you can see, or not. They're not in different signs, but they're wide apart, 16 degrees. But they're at that same, from our viewpoint, so that the same distance from the equator, meaning that they're as if they're conjunct. So that's an extra part.
And here you can also see Neptune is square the sun and the moon. So there can be, if this is a new moon where it's a seeding or a sprouting, there may be some confusion in the beginning, and a need to kind of surrender into just the flow and trusting that things are going to work out.
That's a good point. And the moon here is, yes. So
kind of
important.
a let go, let God kind of setup,
Yes.
maybe.
Which is not super comfortable for a Capricorn moon. You know, that Capricorn moon likes to one of the ways it feels safe is to be able to control the situation.
Or strategize, to be able to, yes, make plans. And it's how can, but that is really where you need to connect with the greater spirit and really start listening inside. It is yin still.
Yeah.
So that's good. And in
ask,
fact,
ask the question, how can spirit help me build what I'm building? What's the spiritual component to what I am working on?
And getting grounded, because Capricorn is an earth sign. And so it wants to do things out in the world and manifest in an earthly fashion. And how do we do that from a spiritual place? You know, like, how do we ground our spiritual energies into the earth?
You're both speaking about this point of Thales, who was a great mathematician many years ago. And it is this particular aspect. As you can see, the moon, there's an opposition, which is the full moon, and they're both have an aspect to Haumea, which is a trine and a sextile. Haumea, of course, is sitting right at that 0 degrees Scorpio, but it's rebirth. And everything you're mentioning about surrendering and going to spirit all seems to be culminating, to put that word in, with that large spectrum, because rebirth, you know, is not a simple thing. And
yeah, and there are a couple moon phase charts coming up here that do have that Neptune square to the sun and moon. And so it's a theme right now. And Neptune in the last degree of Pisces, this is the period right before the birth into Aries. And so there's a sense of darkness to it, and just kind of surrendering and getting ready for the next phase.
You make me feel so much better.
We're all going through it.
This is a very holistic experience, having these panels. It's like, oh yes, good thought. So this is our volunteer, and we're hoping she can make it. We haven't heard. She confirmed she wasn't feeling well a couple of weeks ago, so I hope there wasn't a miscommunication what day. But she was born on August 1st, 1982 at 4:22 a.m. Central Daylight Time in Austin, Texas. And again, she's very moon oriented. This is just how the universe came with this person to us. So it's teaching me how working with the universe is so supportive. She has a Cancer ascendant. Of course, the moon rules it. She is, as John, you mentioned, a waxing. That means heading towards the full moon. So she has a lot that she too wants to complete to get ready for that event of culmination. And also she happens to have that aspect with the two, moon and Neptune, conjunct 5 degrees. So she's very much feeling this, as we will see in the different charts.
Yeah, it's a very lunar chart. I mean, she's got that Cancer ascendant ruled by the moon. She's got a North Node in Cancer ruled by the moon, and Venus in Cancer ruled by the moon right there, conjunct the North Node. And so the moon is ruling like all of these pieces, and how she's feeling and her sense of safety in the world is impacting everything around here. And when we see lunar charts, we know that generally people are affected by or they sense the different moon phases in the sky to a greater degree.
Absolutely. It's a changing effect, which must also have its challenges with a Capricorn. Although she has the rising her descendant, in other words, how she relates one-to-one with people, would be wanting to have that structure. And of course, Saturn, which rules that, is in that action-oriented T-square between it all. And so both the moon, Saturn, and Venus here, because Venus of her, what's attracted, what she's attuned to for values and beauty and harmonizing her world and values particularly, is right associated with that North Node. And they're all in a triad for rulership, right? So it's timing, a lot of timing.
I don't think it's easy to I have a Cancer North Node, which is having a big pull in this chart because the moon rules the chart. So learning to really let go and be in that moon energy a lot of the time when you have that square to the power planets of Saturn and Pluto, who really want things to be, well, especially Saturn, more solid, and Pluto more deep, but you want to be more free. So that might be part of what's being dealt with here. And also I notice Sun looks like it's square Ceres, like an authority at odds with an Earth Mother kind of quality. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, Ceres is in Scorpio there. If it's big enough, sorry if it's not big enough, but there's a lot of tensions to resolve and a lot of actions, a lot of capacities too, because as Amanda, you'd mentioned, or we'd both all mentioned, the safety net that Cancer works for, but must be a very strategic soul, but dealing with a lot of inner needs.
Maybe likes having a plan. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like what is the path going to be, and to have that clarified, so the moon can expand and do what it wants to do, but yet you're also helping the part of you that needs that structure.
There's kind of there's competing energies in here. There's like that Capricorn South Node and the Saturn Pluto conjunction, where it's like, let's get this together. Let's kind of get control of things. And then the moon Neptune just kind of wants to dissolve into the world. And you know, it's going to, moon Neptune is going to pick up all the energies out there. It doesn't have the strongest boundaries. And so it feels everybody's stuff out there. And Saturn is all about boundaries. So when we see Saturn squaring the nodes, this could be an area where Dawn Marie is trying to, where this is a lifetime where she's working to establish those correct boundaries for herself. And with Saturn conjunct Pluto, Pluto is our power. So really getting into that Saturn space for herself is a good way. It's her way to power. It's an empowering thing to do.
And that leads me to realize too that deconditioning, finding her own values, there it is in the North Node of caring, of all the nurturing qualities of Cancer, that because it is with, you know, it's in the first house and the seventh house of relationships, and Saturn there, to be empowered, you have to have your own values. You have to have your own sense of what the traditions are in life. I mean, not be following at every point in life. We're trained to follow ideas, but then it comes down to us. Does that fit with our perspective of life? She might be a very intuitive person that's seeking so many directions and not having a conformed life. It could be because we don't know about her. I hope she comes and joins. Yeah. We have a few minutes here, 5 minutes. And here we have the first phase that we're starting from, and that would be just a couple of days ago, the full moon, to show this storyline of development, because it's really powerful. It happens to be that, of course, the sun entered Cancer, and she had a lunar return. You can see that in the 6th house. Her anaretic 29-degree Sagittarius moon, of course, was with this full moon made a lunar return. And it also, she's experiencing a square, this action, crisis in action, actually, because it's the first square to her in phase to her own Neptune. So must be, where do you begin? It's hard really the best and only place, well, one of the best places is within, if you have to really seek inside, because it's not certain where things begin and where they end with Neptune.
Well, and Sue, I love what you said about deconditioning, because with a Cancer North Node and Capricorn South Node, these are family energies. So she's shifting out of some family energies, and that Saturn is square her nodes, like we mentioned. It's in the 4th house, and that's a family. That's a family house, as is her Pluto. So we know that, there may have been a really strict parent. There may have been an overbearing parent. That would be Pluto. So this is impacting her life. The other thing that I think is interesting here is all of the planets in her chart are in the northern hemisphere, which is the lower hemisphere.
I noticed that. Yes.
Yeah. So all of the planets were at the time of her birth, they were all on the underside of the Earth. Like nothing
under
was
the
above
horizon.
in the
You
sky.
couldn't see it.
Yes, exactly.
Very personal.
And one of the things that we know about that is when you have a northern hemisphere domination, there are things to work through from childhood that are impacting you now in your current day. So this is she's working through whatever that was for her.
John, I'm just jumping to the 3rd quarter. I hope, is that okay? You hadn't commented.
I know. Just a quick note on that 4th house, Pluto. Often it can be an offering or a challenge to find your own tribe. If the family life was, I don't know, there was too much pressure in the family life. Often people with Pluto in the 4th house, they got to find their own crowd that gets them and accepts them and welcomes them in. That can be a thing.
Good point. So the coming up ahead, which will be on June 28th, today is the 23rd, in 5 days, we're going from quarter to quarter. It'll be the crisis in consciousness. She's actually having a Venus return. So she had a moon return where you have that every month. The moon comes around every 29.5 days, but it happened to coincide with that particular full moon. And now with the third, this 3rd quarter of action, she's going to be rooting into her values, which is with Cancer, ruled by the moon, and in the 1st house. So it's all about her. This is very strong, I think. Shall we go on or any?
Yeah, I think this is the North Node and Venus in general in her chart are really powerful and really good places to focus on for Dawn Marie, because they're also the resolution points for this Saturn square. And so shifting and focusing on developing those yin qualities and that sense of nurturing the self and finding relationships that are nurturing, that would be Venus. This is a new chapter for Dawn Marie, a new phase of her Venus. So super important.
The next,
it's coming right after that full moon phase where, there was an illumination of something in her life. And so here it is coming right before that 3rd quarter phase, which is another action point.
We will come back. We have a break right now, and I'm going to try really hard to get a hold of Dawn Marie and see what happened. And we'll be back looking at these charts. So stay with us. This is Talk Cosmos with Kaleidoscope Visions on the 23rd of June. Okay, thank you.
take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. Currently, we are in the period of Cancer. By leaving a cycle based on connecting mental communication to the external, the energy of Cancer involves emotions, which create our personal story through our emotional associations and attachments. As a cardinal water sign that is nurturing, Cancer needs to process emotions in one's own internal rhythm of cycles in order to complete an evolution.
This is Martha Norwalk. Every Sunday morning, beginning at 9 a.m., thanks in part to Natasha Venter at intuitiveclarifications.com, we cover the world of animals. This week, it's an encore presentation. Tune in to hear our last healing show with Dr. Nels Rasmussen and Linda Rasmussen. Together, they helped callers and their animal friends with emotional, behavioral, and physical issues, and you can receive a surrogate healing just by listening and following along with Linda's instructions. Hope you can join us, Martha Norwalk's Animal World, Sunday morning, 9 a.m. to noon, right here on Alternative Talk, AM 1150.
Talk Cosmos brings insightful conversations to awaken consciousness for the soul growth with hour-long programs every Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific on KKNW. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel and Facebook page. While you're there, make sure you click the like and subscribe buttons so you get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. And to find out about upcoming programs, sign up for the newsletter at talkcosmos.com. So grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Giving local voices a chance to shine. Alternative Talk 1150.
Well, hi, we're back again.
Your call has been forwarded to an automated.
Okay, and I guess we don't have Dawn Marie for the first time. However, she did say it was okay, so we're in the clear. So we'll be talking just very generally as an example, which we are continuing to do, about these phases. And so far, I'm just astounded how the universe, because I didn't look at the charts before she accepted and we made contact, but it's definitely following a story theme. So shall we continue? Interestingly, on this third one coming up, which will be even stronger going ahead, or as strong, is the work on Chiron. Chiron, again, is this back feature. A lot of healing, as we were talking about, working through your personal and the childhood possibly, and releasing, because South Node is always releasing what the shadow part is. And interestingly, the South Node is working on both Saturn as a structure there in the fourth house, releasing the relationships in Libra, and in the seventh house, it's in Capricorn. Okay, we'll move on. Because it continues. What I was pointing out was up in the 11th house, there's Uranus applying to her Chiron, and then transiting Chiron, which I think will show in the next slide for the new moon. No, this is the new moon, is opposing her Pluto. So there's a lot of transformation happening. Oh, I think, Amanda, you're muted.
Okay, here I am. Thank you. So here,
I'm sorry.
so here we have like the new start to a new moon phase. This is July 5th, new moon for everybody. So we're just going to kind of walk through how this phase is going to work for Dawn. And it's the start of it. All of the phases, they build off of the previous phases. So whatever she was going through then, we're starting anew. And let me just look at my notes here on this, if someone else wants to add anything else in.
That is very appropriate, because absolutely correct. It's like that beginning that John was mentioning about the seed that we're ready to plant. And archetypally, this is in Cancer, which is home front for her. I mean, if that is applicable analogy, but on her ascendant, on how she operates with life, with her North Node, the destiny path that she's reaching to go, that has more empathy, that has more nurturing, that's in tune with your feelings and your emotions. And emotions can always tell a new story. We tell our story through our experiences and our interpretation, yet life constantly, and that's why we do astrology really in many ways, is to get another perspective, to see with more input and more experiences and more encouragements to shift that story so that it actually functions for us in the way that is our bedrock of our existence.
And what I love about this new moon for Dawn is that the sun and moon are both at that Venus degree. So she just had her Venus return, and now it's shining this light on her Venus, and this is the new moon phase for her. So really initiating forward that Venus energy for her, and that sense of safety within that Cancer energy, especially with the moon right there.
John,
I like that Venus is also sextile Chiron, which I want to note that is the only planet above the horizon in the chart. So it has the most it's the most elevated planet. So Chiron's kind of key in the life. Working on the wound. I hate that association. The thing that pains you all through life, and you work on that and you get better with it. You can also help others with that. So this is a time where that is speaking, and Venus is there. So I guess what we're trying to say is Chiron is the helper to Venus.
Or transiting Venus is in that relationship with her natal. I just like
exactly.
Or no, with her natal one. That's right.
With her natal
In
Chiron.
fact, it's actually at a tension-oriented action aspect with the transiting Chiron. So it's a flow of connection to work to figure out perhaps her identity, and maybe with her body too. You know, Chiron in natal in Taurus has a lot to do with your body and your values.
Loving use of your personal power. The natal Chiron in Aries is, I think of like the wounded warrior kind of thing, where I always picture the warrior coming home and getting better and getting well. So with Venus, with that, it's a lot of healing in that regard. It's a great time to jump on that.
Well, that is interesting, because the warrior, in any of us, whether it's an actual war or not, we step out. It is Aries, where it's a spark away from the womb, out just instinctively towards becoming something new, either to defend or for a cause. Either way, but you encounter so much. It's not always because it is the unknown. Depending on how you project that, it can be a bit embattled, and so maybe you have to nurse and reconsider.
And the exhaustion of always initiating and starting, which is another Aries quality.
Yeah, they can burn out. Aries can just from
and
remember that.
The Aries energy it's important in this chart with that first house that has the North Node and the Venus in there. And I think the body is probably an important area for Dawn Marie to look at, because she's got that Neptune, transiting Neptune at 29 Pisces, squaring her moon, and the moon rules her first house. So the body itself may be a little bit compromised. The Neptune can kind of rule your immune system, and how you're feeling physically is the first house. So that may be important to Dawn Marie right now. And also the fact that her moon is natally in the 6th house, which is also a healing house. And with Neptune there natally, there can also be some health stuff coming up. So this may be a focus right now for her.
I hope so, because last we spoke, she was not feeling well. And I don't remember whether, there's so many things that can happen, but I do hope that she's will send healing thoughts to her. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that with that North Node in the first house in Cancer, it's like, it's a journey to embodying the emotions and connecting the body with the emotions
and to go through it, to really,
yeah.
it's so easy when we have attachments, and it's scary to go through some emotions. I mean, often. And so one resists that, thinking that one's delaying it, but actually resisting is persisting. And it is a matter of just going through it. And then there's a transition, it allows that action, I suppose. Here I mentioned about Ceres because from the last one, it was conjunct. That Ceres, that transiting is conjunct that south node of hers, and it's happening 3 times. So this is the retrograde season experience that in March, that will be in July, because in March it was the first cross. Now it's retrograde over that in July, and then in October. So this is a somewhat of a longer passage of time, where ideally these incremental moon phases and other aspects and everything that she might be doing are going to help her figure out how to nurture herself, that probably works how she can then provide something to other people. We don't know what she does. If maybe she's with all that 6th house, she could be a Reiki person or a healer of some sort, or
she could be a therapist.
Professor.
There's many different arenas for that.
Very likely has some distinction with Sag and Saturn. So here we have the following first quarter. This is after the new moon, and it will be on July 13th. And this is all Greenwich time that I use for the world chart. Here she has a Mercury return. So it's very interesting that she had a lunar return, a Venus return. In other words, her emotions, her values, and now her thought process all integrated. And this is so much linked to her sun is in Leo of her self. But in addition, there's the moon transiting is conjunct that 4th house Saturn. So it's really about timing, a process, and endings and beginnings. Saturn says there's a finite moment, things end and begin. The moon is more on a cycle here. It's going to have a phase.
So this is the first quarter, the crisis of action. And so whatever was seeded during that first period, which sounds like it's going to be Venus related, right? This is a new path for Venus forward. And that moon and Chiron really highlighting that Pluto and where she has been held back from her power. And I think with that Mercury return, there's a push to kind of speak from the heart and, kind of letting her voice shine. It's in the 2nd house, her Mercury. This is a house of values and self-worth. And so really like owning her voice and what does she need to say right now to kind of take back her power.
Yeah, the first quarter being the risk-taking phase, and the decision and acting to be consistent with the choice that you make and seeing it through, so that little plant that just come up from the ground can be strong enough to survive. It's a kind of like the fighter thing coming out.
Yeah, and since we're working still coming from a Cancer full moon. Interestingly, this is just prior to her birth. She is a Leo, so this is a very balsamic period for her that is really looking at the very tail end. That goes into the 8 phases of the moon, but very internal, as we said, under the horizon, so internal. Yeah, and I'm just struck with how Chiron gets, whether transiting or natal, and the fact that her natal Chiron in the 11th house there in Taurus, which of course speaks, it looks to Venus, but both for all of us, we're going to have Mars and Uranus conjunct, and this happens to be on her first, well, on everybody's first. Somehow it might, gee, that's going to be right on my Mars. That's interesting. I wonder what's going to happen for me. Maybe we'll do me next time.
Well, for everybody, this first quarter moon has that Chiron component to it. So Chiron opposing the moon, squaring the sun. We're all here to take some action on areas where we have wounding around stepping into our individuality, wounding around being rash or impulsive. Those are some areas of Aries where we can have wounding.
Here I'm getting personal, but that moon is right on my moon. So I am realizing that between a lunar return for me and then also on my Mars, a Mars return, well, I guess
that's some Aries energy. The nice thing about this moon opposite Chiron is that it is an opposition. And with an opposition, you're able to have a little bit of objectivity. You can step back from it a little bit and act from that place. So hopefully that will turn out well for you.
Exactly, of course. And that's the beautiful thing about astrology is that we see that this needs to be a common awareness. So one becomes sensitive as an intention, and using that intention helps listen to how the universe works. Because having Dawn Marie, which I hope she has a chance to look at this later, and maybe she'll give us some feedback, and we can, if she had questions or something, we certainly would have helped her clarify something on a personal basis. But that's what it's all about. It's very psychological, you could say, besides spiritual. Should I go on to the next one? I think that's our last slide. We come to the full moon, which meant we went from full moon to full moon in this particular transit reading, because we just occurred a couple of days ago from the full moon. And this one is like what they call in popular world a blue moon, meaning that there's two full moons. No, it's not two full moons in the same month, is it? Yes, in the same. No, it's not. But the fact is, it's 29 degrees. It's Capricorn again. So we had one at 1 degree and now 29 degrees. For Dawn, this is quite a legacy of experience because of the fact that she has Saturn ruling Capricorn, and it squares her nodes, and the moon is also in relationship to, Pluto. It's just like a hair away from it. It must be extremely transformational on
this will be a big one for all of us with Pluto in the mix and Chiron in the mix. So we're going to have some greater awareness around power dynamics in our lives and how well we're working with them on an individual level with that Chiron there, and where we've been wounded and how we can step into greater healing for ourselves through this. So it may be intense, but it will be good. It's good to get this awareness and this illumination. And then for Dawn, it's even bigger because it's creating that grand square with her Mars. So we're adding Mars into the mix of this, which just always adds fuel to the fire.
Which rules that Chiron that's transiting. So it's going to be action oriented. And just prior to her birthday is August 1st. So
she's got her South Node is in the 7th house, and that's the Libra house. Her Mars, Saturn, and Pluto are all in Libra. So there's some pieces here where she's looking to She has wonderful strengths around Libra and how to be with other people and be diplomatic and kind. It's just a matter of sometimes Libra can overstep and give too much to the other and not be as giving to themselves. So finding that correct balance. Mars in Libra is often a challenging placement for people because Mars just wants to do what it wants to do. It's that Aries energy, and having to think about other people can be a little bit exhausting for Mars, and that's what Libra likes to do. So there's some areas here for awareness for Dawn, where it's gonna help her shift her power dynamics.
It beautifully put, because that's really what Pluto wants, is empowerment. And empowerment means, are my resources that I'm exchanging with other people, and of course hers is in Libra, which is relationships, are they feeding me? Am I feeding them? Or is this old and spent and not really my arena anyway?
And do they nurture me? Like, that's the Cancer energy, you know? It's like, is this good for my body and does it make me feel good? And I think with her moon Neptune, she knows how to feel out there. And so knowing what really feels good to her body is important.
Well, thank you both, Amanda and John. John, do you have, I'm going to go beyond, unless you had a thought. That is just beautiful. This is John Chinworth at Skypath Astro, Amanda Pierce at her email, Amanda Moon Astrology, her site's in revision, and me, Talk Cosmos. So thanks to everybody that does sign up for the newsletter. And we are, of course, on many different Facebook and YouTube, and the radio, KKNW. And I happen to be once a month on, you can find me on these videos featuring Sue, and that's on my YouTube channel with Liz Machette. We just talked about the solstice, and we're going to talk about Ceres and the moon next time. And Astro Jam is next week. We have 8 people with 2 teams. It's going to be pretty exciting. Actually, it's the week after next. I got mixed up in my head. Never mind what my head thought. So anyway, and then of course we have a playlist. So let's talk. We have a couple of minutes. My goodness, the moon.
Yeah, I had one other thought to share just about the moon phase cycles. One way to look at it is the sun as like the spirit and source energy, and it's so big and bright and intense. We just don't have the human capacity to comprehend it all. And you know, if we stare directly at the sun, we'll go blind. So the moon acts kind of as an intermediary between us on Earth and the sun as the spirit, and it's able to reflect the sun's light back to us in a digestible way. So these moon phases kind of help us absorb and digest the spiritual lessons that are being brought to us.
I was waiting for you, John, but you know what that brings up is the mythology, right? Because the Artemis and Apollo, or other mythologies of ancient, thought that the moon birthed the sun. And so in a way it does. It gives you that, what you're saying. I'd never thought of the astrology with the mythology that way, that on a daily basis, we're seeing this awareness digested, because polarities are so beautiful. If we go to one end or the other, we of course get extremes and we get weaknesses. But if we kind of use the strength of the others, we can think and work.
Love that.
Yeah. Well, here we are. It's summer and the dynamics are happening. The moon was beautiful. Did you see it last night? Did you see it where you were?
In and out of clouds.
Oh, it was so gorgeous. It was just big and huge, and really makes.
But it's gorgeous in Hawaii.
Well, when the sun, because it's not always sunny, you know, we've had clouds too, but I was so grateful it was. And interestingly, I must say that the lunar people I know, I'm married to a lunar person, he takes pictures of the moon. Of course, I do too. Well, happy hello to everybody. Thank you for watching and signing up, and we'll connect next month and next week.
Thank you for joining an insightful conversation on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Rose Minahan and her panel of guests awaken consciousness by connecting soul growth patterns with astrology's energetic cycles. Be sure to tune in next Sunday, 1 p.m. Pacific Time, to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.